Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel and to today's video all about the introduction to the ACCA taxation exam. That's the TX and also known as the F6 paper. My name is James and on my YouTube channel I help out ACCA and accounting students around the world pass their upcoming examinations. And if this is the first time you've clicked on one of my videos, you won't be aware that I dedicate every video to one of my lovely subscribers. And today is no different. As you can see in the center of the screen, Arian has kindly put on here more requests for more taxation videos. So Arian, I'm more than happy to dedicate today's video to you. If you'd like to subscribe so you get access to all my free materials, just hit the button below and be sure to leave me a comment about any requests of videos you'd like and just let me know what you actually thought of the video itself. So be sure to also hit the like button below, give it a massive thumbs up and share the video with any study buddies and friends that you know it could help. And as ever, thank you so much for all of the support to the channel, and it's so pleasing that the videos are helping so many students around the world pass their examinations, because today's video on tax can be actually implemented along with the exam tips. If you're doing the UK paper, the Singapore paper, whichever one you're doing, they can all be applied, and I've put the link where you can access all the free resources in the description of this video, so make sure you check that out. Because the first area you're going to actually have to go and have a look at is the detailed syllabus for your specific exam. Now, the ones on here from A to G are for the UK paper, all up to date, and it just takes you through all of the key areas that you need to be aware of for your exam. So if you've got pen and paper with you, take a photo of it, screenshot, whatever works best. But on the next slide when we go over to it, I'm going to walk and talk you through in a lot more sort of simplistic and broken down areas. But in essence, what we've got on here is all the details from the tax system, the actual liabilities, gains on here, individuals, companies, businesses, perspectives, the actual employability and technology skills at the bottom. But I'm going to walk and talk you through this in James's terms on here, because yes, this is the syllabus breakdown from ACCA, but this is my little syllabus breakdown into the key topic areas that you need to sort of differentiate out for your tax examination paper. So one key tip, which we'll talk about later on in the video, is when you're actually going through your notes and you're making mistakes as you go through, I'd highly recommend you either get separate folders or separate pieces of paper and just write up at the top the tax system and its administration. Anything that you have in queries in terms of that, put it under that, and have the same for A to G on here. I'm just going to walk and talk you through sort of everything that you need to know and sort of general areas for it as well that you will expect to see on your exam itself. So coming on to the tax system and its administration, first of all, well, key things to get noted down there is you've got to understand the actual functions of a tax system, the purpose, and how the actual system works, because you're going to be asked within your examination about the sort of time limits, so the tax years and the company years. You've got different submission dates on there, compliance that will need to be adhered to, whether that be a company or an individual, and we'll come on to that later on because we've got chargeable gains and corporation tax liabilities on there. What checks and due diligence will have to be undertaken, any appeals if a client goes potentially to court or maybe there was an issue with their actual return, because then that can lead on to potential disputes and other penalties that you may have to discuss, especially in narrative answers, just to be aware of. But that's a sort of overview flavour for everything about the tax system, the administration that you'd have to be able to pull out nuggets of information to talk about in your exam. Now, the next one on here, we have income tax and national insurance contribution liabilities on here. So in other words, how much income tax have you got due, and then how much national insurance have you got due on there. So we've got to talk about, first of all, the scope for both of those. So what do they actually mean? Who does it apply to? An individual on there. And then for the national insurance contributions, is it an employee or an employer contribution? You've got to know the difference between an employed individual and a self-employed individual. Plus, with an income tax computation, they may also have property income is another thing you should expect to see on this exam, and also potential investment income as well. Popping them all in the computation to come out at the end, as you can see there from liabilities, what is due to be paid. For national insurance, we touched on earlier, employed and self-employed, knowing the difference between the two, exemptions that you may be allowed to apply for, reliefs and allowances. So in the UK, you gain a personal allowance where you don't pay any tax up to that certain threshold. So you need to be aware of that. Chargeable gains for individuals now, and be really specific on individuals. You're going to have to be doing computations to work out, does the client or individual have a gain or a loss? What are they actually disposed of? So is it shares? Is it property? Is it securities? What different types of assets? And then again, applying the different actual exemptions on there, any reliefs and any allowances. Coming on to part D now on here, inheritance tax. So lots of areas on here of the actual transfer of value computation. So this is where a person will go through their life, they will make what is known as chargeable lifetime transfers. There will also be exemptions on there, and actually how do we pay for inheritance tax? Or maybe we could defer the tax by making some charitable donations to reduce the percentage level. These are all the other considerations you need to be aware of before your examination. Next, we're coming on to the actual corporation tax liabilities, and notice how we've gone from individual now to an actual corporation. So try to picture that in your mind on there. Taking those taxable profits, how Amazon or any corporation would actually be liable to pay. Then any chargeable gains if they've made any sales in that particular company year. That will mean we'd have to calculate a liability, apply a tax rate for that particular area or jurisdiction. We've got to also work out the company structure. So that is, well, are we actually operating in a group here? Do we have any subsidiaries? Do we have any associates? That's another key thing which we'll come on to later on. And then obviously on top of that, we've got the exemptions as well. Then we've got the reliefs and any other deferred payments. So lots of things to think about. But remember, from an individual perspective and then from a company perspective on there. Coming on to F, we've got value added tax, so VAT. And this is where you've got to know the actual registration requirements. So at the time of this recording, it's about 85,000 for the total turnover within the last 12 months. But then you've got to check that out for the tax year that you're applying for on there. Are there any other special schemes that you need to be aware of? So any other updates on here? And then finally computating it to say what is the percentage I need to charge and then how much is due to the client or the individual. Coming on to part G now for employability and technology skills. So this is all about the computer-based examination. We're going to come on to tips about that, the format, how we computate it, presenting all the data as well, and then explaining it to the marker in a clear and concise way if you are actually dealing with a client. But that gives you a nice little overview flavour for everything you could expect to see and a nice syllabus breakdown plus a little study tactic that I'd be doing if I was in your shoes having to sit this exam. Because the exam itself, and this is for the UK paper now on here, check it out for the one that you have to do, is broken down into 3 sections, A, B and C, as you can see on the screen. And you've got objective test questions, 2 marks each on there, especially in sections A and sections B. But section C, you've got 1 10-marker, which we'll come on to in a bit more detail, and then 2 15 constructive response questions now, which go into a lot more detail, but the external examiner actually tells you what to expect on there. So I think pen and paper at the ready for that, because now we're going to be having a look at the actual computer-based examination itself. So, key things to get noted down, whether you're just starting out with tax or maybe you're watching this as a revision mechanism, that you've got 3 hours in that exam, and trust me, it's going to go quickly for you. You've got no reading time at the start apart from going through the actual instructions, because when you hit go, that is when you've got to start on there, trust me. So, we've got on here, and this is just from what they actually say within the syllabus guide and the external examiner's report on here. And as you can see, section A and B will assess all of the syllabus. So everything that we talked about in the previous slides, you've got to expect for anything to come up from a company perspective, individual perspective, gains, losses, calculations, the lot. Definitions, rules, regulations. Whereas section C, the actual 10-mark question now, this is the key thing to get down, really important, can test absolutely anything. But, and this is just for the UK paper on here from their syllabus, for the actual 15-mark questions, you can expect to see an income tax question on there, and then secondly, a corporation tax question on there in the 2 15-mark questions. So definitely make sure you're doing past paper questions in your own time. They're definitely going to help you out. The pass mark for this exam, so you go into the exam, you've got 100 marks, you've got to get 50 to pass, and the average pass rate now, so what this means is for every 100 students that turn up to do the exam, only 50 pass it. So it's a real tough exam, and I've put on there really challenging, especially if you've never worked in tax before. So if you're completely new to tax, I'd highly recommend you go through all the study guide, and if you want access to links of the recommended text that I put out there, if you click the link in my description, they're all down there, all recommended, so you can find them nice and easy, along with the flip notes, which will definitely help you with the rates and allowances. But it's just getting that grounded knowledge that is going to be so key to help you to pass this examination. Because we've also got to consider some exam tips on here. So what sort of insights, maybe you've got the exam tomorrow or next week, that I can share with you in today's lecture that could just get you over the line for those final marks. Well, first of all, understanding that all of the syllabus can be tested. So especially for sections A and B, which I've got on here, that I see as not as the more complicated areas, should we say, but because they're objective test questions, if you get them wrong, it's selecting the answer on there. So if you get it wrong, I'm afraid 0 marks on there. If you're completely new to taxation, I'd highly recommend that you read the most up-to-date technical articles, and this will refer to anything new that's updated, and the external examiners highly recommend students to read these. They're available on ACCA's website, and they're in the link of the description of this video as well, so check them out. Now this is, as I touched on, it's only my opinion, but I believe that section C is the hardest. And if you haven't already, go and check out the How to Pass Tax video that I've got on my channel that runs you through how I would approach the examination if I was in your shoes, because exam time management, especially in this exam, is so key. It's 1.8 minutes per mark, and that stems from 3 hours, so 180 minutes, divided by the 100 marks, hence you get 1.8 minutes per mark, because the external examiner continually tells us that students don't write enough, especially for section C, and they run out of time and rush it on there. Fully understanding the requirement and reading carefully on there is another key aspect. So key thing to get down in your notes is asking yourself the question in the exam, am I dealing with an individual or an actual company? Also, what time frame am I referring to? And you've got to start asking yourself questions about, well, what if this was one of my clients? What about the allowances that I could be put on here? The reliefs, what's their sort of situation? What's their background? Do we have all the information? These are the things you've got to be really questioning, and that is where I believe you'll be in the 50% to pass this exam. You've also got to check for the actual changes in rules and regulations and allowances. Now, this is based on the UK, but the new rules, regulations and allowances come into effect in the June examination. So what that means is we have a March, a June, a September and a December paper, sitting, shall I say, on there. And the June sitting is the first one of the new rules, regulations and allowances. So if you sit the tax paper in March, potentially fail it and have to resit it in June, or you're going to have up-to-date rules, regulations and allowances that you're going to have to reapply on there. So just be careful. I've also put on here the actual computer-based platform. You can access this on ACCA's website. And past papers, understanding the computations is so key. Showing all your workings, how you follow it through, and then writing down in detail as well all of the areas that you need to be aware of. That practice platform, especially for sections A and B, where you've actually got questions on there, objective test questions, where if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. Well, that is nil point for you, because it's just, I've got it wrong, I've selected the wrong answer, I've not understood the requirement properly. So that's a real key area that you need to be aware of. I also touched on the area earlier about separating out from the different sections, and that it just really helps someone from a non-tax background, which I used to work in tax and producing accounts, that you've got to really sort of picture in your mind, am I dealing with corporation tax or income tax or value-added tax? And another good way of getting around this is trying to picture a company or an area, or maybe the business you work for's actual situation, so that you can take the concepts and apply it to maybe one of your friends or a company itself. It makes it so much more easier. And finally, if you've got time before your actual tax examination, some of the topics link into the actual financial accounting and financial reporting, especially in the layouts on there, linking into the income statement, the balance sheet, quite a few areas. But I'd also recommend that you have a look at the technical articles so that you're up to date and you're really getting a feel for how tax can be applied not only to a client's perspective, but also to your own perspective. And that will be one of the differences in my eyes in you being in that 50% and passing your examination. So that takes you through absolutely all of the key topic areas that you need to know for your tax exam. I really hope you enjoyed the video, so if you have, give it a massive like and thumbs up, and thank you so much as ever for all of the support to the channel. What I've done for you is click one of the videos on screen. That could be the difference in getting those final marks so that you pass your tax exam. But as always on that bombshell, I'll see you next time. Cheers!